Hey everyone, welcome back to the VSO Gun Channel. It's great to have you here as always. Thank you for tuning in. I've been doing a lot of range time the last week or so, and I've got some really cool projects that I'm going to be wrapping up coming your way soon. So thank you very much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, turn the notifications on. All that stuff helps spread the message of the Second Amendment around. So thank you very much for your support. That said, today we're talking about the National Firearms Act. It has always stuck in my craw that the Bill of Rights can start with, Congress shall make no law. And then literally the second thing that they wrote underneath of that is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I don't think it gets a whole lot clearer than that, but we have things like the National Firearms Act and the Gun Control Act and all of the other bullcrap that has been bolted on top of it. And I have read all the commentaries from around the 1930s era when they were talking about doing the NFA tax and all that sort of stuff and what the purpose of it was and all that. Well, there has been a bill submitted in both the House and the Senate of the United States that I'm going to be clear with you, has absolutely no chance of passing whatsoever, but it seeks to eliminate the tax portion of the National Firearms Act. And even though this has no chance of passing whatsoever, it's really important for you to understand it so that when an opportunity comes around where there is a good environment in the legislature to get something like this on the books, that we are ready to throw our support behind it wholesale. And that's what we're going to talk about here today after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Quick service announcement for all of y'all. We have now 2 discount codes prepped up for you guys over at Mission First Tactical. One is for the all day everything stuff, everything from their backpacks to their drinkware, to the holsters, to even the new translucent magazines that they just came out with. Really like the purple ones, by the way. And then a second code that is for everything that is getting ready to go away. That is going to be a rolling list that is going to change with time, but it's going to be like 50 or 60% off in many cases. So you can find all that information over at the affiliates page, and special thanks to Mission First Tactical for making today's video possible. What we're talking about here today is the Rifle Act, or the Repealing Illegal Freedoms and Liberty Excise Act. Now, I'm going to front load this and tell you what this actually is, because what this actually is a bunch of people in the House and Senate covering for their shitbird colleagues that voted for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Those people have been getting absolutely hammered by their constituents lately, and this is an effort to put something out there that a whole bunch of people can get behind on the Republican side and be like, oh yeah, you know what, they subverted what we wanted to do with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, mental health, blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm pro 2A because I am going to vote for this bill. I'm going to support this bill that is making headway on something that has been an affront to the Second Amendment and constitutional rights for almost 100 years now. But what it left out is that it has absolutely no chance of passing whatsoever. We're going to be reading from the House version of the bill. It is H.R. 790 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to repeal the firearms transfer tax and for other purposes. Amending by striking on which the tax provided by Section 5811 has been paid and inserting with respects to which the tax provided by Section 5811 as in effect immediately before the enactment of the Repealing Illegal Freedom and Liberties Excise Acts would have applied but for its repeal. And then it goes through and lists all the other places where they're changing the language, striking, for instance, and adding amendments. And then it says, nothing in this act shall be construed to place any firearms regulated under Chapter 53 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, the National Firearms Act, under the jurisdiction of the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission. That's it. Very simple bill, right? Just pulls the tax out. Now, if you were to get caught processing something after this thing passes, then you're obviously out your $200. But that's not a reason to say, oh, I'm just going to wait for that thing to pass, because it's not going to pass in the imminent or foreseeable future. And let me explain why. We might get it through the House of Representatives, but there are a whole lot of rhinos over there as well that might be like, wow, silencers. I don't like silencers. Who needs a silencer? Sawed-off shotguns. Who needs a sawed-off shotgun to hunt ducks or deer? Actually, I have hunted ducks with a sawed-off shotgun, and it is exceptionally effective, I might add. But that's beside the point. Might get it through the House of Representatives, probably not through the Senate. We don't really have the votes to do that. And even if we were to squeak it through the Senate, then the President of the United States is not going to sign it, or, whoever is doing this is not going to sign it. We definitely don't have a veto override in the Senate. So it's not going to happen. Even under favorable conditions, if you rewind several years, the last time we, quote unquote, the Republicans, the last time the Republicans controlled all houses of government, they didn't even touch any of this stuff, and they had that for 2 years. So this, in my opinion, is a facade and a charade. But I think it's important to recognize the tactics here. So if it were to find itself in a passing situation, then I think that it undermines the entire basis of the National Firearms Act. And there's really been no challenge to the National Firearms Act up to this point. Even though the Bill of Rights says, shall not be infringed, the Supreme Court has seen it fit in almost every situation to say, oh yeah, you're allowed to do that because it's a tax. The taxing power is invoked in many situations across the government to do things that are otherwise probably not okay. Insert Obamacare here, for instance. As in literally compelling you to purchase a product that you do not want and cannot afford. I don't think it gets any more extreme than that. But there is a continuous circular argument. Hey, we can have this thing because it's within the taxing power of the U.S. government, but you can't tax a right. So between those two arguments, there's a purgatory, if you will, that the National Firearms Act exists in. There is also a bill that has been submitted that will also have zero chance of passing, that just outright repeals the National Firearms Act. That's submitted all the time, really, but it's on the books at the same time. So there is a climate, I believe, of senators and representatives that want to push in that direction. I think that there is a good situation that exists for challenge now, but if a challenge were to occur after the tax portion had been removed, I think nail in the coffin. Because all you would have at that point in time is just an infringement on the right of the people to keep and bear arms. You wouldn't have any of the support structure, all the basis by which the government can say, oh, well, it's within our power to do because it's enumerated in the Constitution of the United States that we have the power to tax, even though it directly conflicts with the Bill of Rights. You remove that tax, and I think the whole thing falls. That said, tax stamps go into the general fund. There's a major misconception out there by a lot of people that they go to support the ATF. That's not the case. They go into the general fund. So if you want to talk about a tactic to destabilize the NFA, and don't get me wrong, I think that it's right for challenge as it sits. But if you wanted to destabilize it, then think about the movement. Checks the box of Second Amendment oriented for those in office that want to appear to support the Second Amendment, even if they don't. The dual purpose of reducing taxes. Boys and girls, I think that's the secret sauce. So I think what we need to do as constituents is be loud and vocal about hey, we just want you to remove the tax because we think that that's unconstitutional, it's unfair, etc., etc., etc. Reasonable, common sense, just remove the tax, knowing full well that our opponents on the other side of it don't have the cognitive capabilities to really combat that they still think the NRA is the big boogeyman in the room, right? So do this, get it on the books, eliminate the basis that the government has been using for almost 100 years now to undermine the Second Amendment. And that frees up the path for somebody like Firearms Policy Coalition to go in there and bust the whole thing up. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below, and we'll hopefully see another video here at the VSO Gun Channel.